Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Rivers Tabac Book Club. I'm your host Andrew, and I'm joined by Josh, my co-host.
Hello there.
Hello. We're gonna continue today with the Dark Tower. It's also named it's named the Dark Tower, and the series is called the Dark Tower. It's book 7, the final book. Today we're gonna talk about part 2, but we're only gonna talk about half of part 2, the second half. So we're gonna talk about chapters 7 through 12, right? I think it goes to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 to 12.
Yeah. So, and as always, we do talk about spoilers. We treat this as a real book club where, we assign out a reading portion and then Josh and I go back and read it and then we discuss it as if it was a real book club. So, if you haven't read the book, we encourage you to go read it before listening to this. Otherwise, you will hear spoilers. And then the other part we just like to talk about is we kind of aim to talk about the things that we think are interesting. We think it makes a better podcast experience. But if there's something that we didn't talk about that you really want us to talk about, feel free to let us know and we can for sure try to include it in the next video. But let's just jump right in here. Josh and I were just talking about this off recording. But the chapters 7 through 12, right? So it felt like there were two halves to this section, right? There was the half that was just like, we're going to talk about all the breakers and their backstories for 1,000 years. And then the other half where we're going to talk about like some crazy things that are going to go down. Obviously, we're going to get into that shortly. But when they were talking about the breaker stuff, it was rough for me to think about. And like, especially when it was just, and I know we've talked about this and you've talked about this a lot too with like exposition dumps. It can just be tough to follow, especially like when we're at the final book and and he's trying to introduce new characters and their backstories and like we're ready to just get to the end. You know what I mean? We're excited to see what's going to happen.
That's why I was thinking that this book, at least in this beginning part of it, is going to be a lot better on a reread, because if you already know the ending, then you won't be too, because like I feel like me and you right now, we're just so like, oh, let's just fucking get there.
Yeah,
like,
no, absolutely.
like,
yeah.
just give me to the Dark Tower. It's like, I don't give a fuck about these other people. But it's like, once we finally finish it, we'll obviously, I think we'll appreciate this stuff a lot more. That adds a lot more depth to the world and the situation they're in. It's just currently, I'm just like, fuck, dude, just get to the fucking tower. Like, it's
seriously,
forever.
We just want to know it's in the tower. And dude, I can't even imagine if we're listening to this on audiobook, obviously, so we have to listen to all of it. If I was reading this in a real book, I would skim. I just know myself. I know I'd skim like so much and I wouldn't probably even pay attention at all to that section, because like you said, I'm just so excited to get to the end of the story and like see what's going to happen at the Dark Tower.
Yeah. So just kind of like skimming over it, I'll just name a few plot points. Not all of them. Just some stuff that I liked in this first half of this section that if we want to talk about further, we can. But one was how we find out that Shimmy has teleporting ability, which is also giving him like seizures and stuff. So that'll lead into later on in the story where it's like, is Roland gonna use Shimi to go save Stephen King? And if they does, how will they get back if Shimi dies? And if Shimi doesn't die and he's able to bring him back, he probably will die. But as we know, Roland will probably use Shimi, which he does. Spoiler, but you knew that because you've read this section already.
Right.
So of course he's gonna, if he'll drop Jake at the beginning, of, if he'll kill a child for the tower, he'll kill Shimi too. So there was that whole segment with Shimi throughout this arc, like the part where Shimi was like praying in the bed as Susanna and the rest of the gunslingers were setting everything up, blowing buildings up and shooting people. Apparently Shimi would have died, is what the writer, Stephen King, was saying, is that like if Shimi stayed in bed, he would have had like, what was it, bullets or like glass or something would have killed him.
Right,
But he
yeah.
was off his bed praying, so it was like, ah,
Caw.
yeah, yeah.
Caw,
So
caw.
there was so those were the two parts of Shimi that I liked. The guy, what's his face?
Ted, the telepath.
Ted,
Yep.
Ted the yeah. So they say he's from the book The Outsiders, I think. And I think there was just a Netflix show called The Outsiders. I watched like the first couple episodes with my parents a couple months ago.
I thought The Outsiders was about like the maybe I'm thinking, or is that The Outcast? Is that the one where it's like
Outcast?
Yeah, yeah. Or no, well, no. I think.
Yeah, it was Outcast.
Yeah, is it another Stephen King book or is it a?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the show. Okay, never mind. You remember? Okay, the show was The Outcast.
Okay,
that makes sense. Yeah, that's why I was like, this seems weird. It doesn't really match up.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember. But you've seen the show. It sounds like.
I didn't watch the whole show. Because I wanted to read the book first, so I didn't want any spoilers, so I stopped watching it with them. I just started watching it with them, but once I found out, I was like, this is really good. This has to be a book, because modern shows suck ass. So I looked it up, and it was Stephen King.
What do you know? It's our boy.
I'm like, great, now I can't watch the show anymore, because me and Andrew will read it someday, and I don't want any spoilers. so I stopped watching it.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense, though, why he included him in here. Then.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking of a different book. Is that the show has nothing to do with this book? Gotcha. I'll have to do more research, maybe next video, because I don't really care right now to look it up. But there you go. Read The Outcast. It's great. Well, I haven't read it yet, but the show was good so far, so just check it out. Yeah. But anyway, his backstory, just like Callahan's, where it was like on a reread, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, like give me that lore. But like currently, I'm just like, dude, I don't give a fuck. We're in the last book. Like, can we speed this up?
We're ready for Frodo to destroy the ring. We're ready for the last fight at the Black Gate. You know, that kind of thing.
Right. So, because it's like if you're finishing up Return of the King, and like, so in the book, Frodo and Sam are not in Mordor that long. So I'm not gonna spoil everything, but like, I mean, if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, really, but yeah, but like, so Frodo and Sam aren't in Mordor that long books, but in the movies it's a little more dragged out. But that's just 'cause they have to do everything else. But like when you're reading Lord of the Rings, it's like if they were in Mordor and then out of nowhere just some stupid fucking orc comes out of nowhere and starts giving us fucking three chapters of his life story before Sam just stabs him or some bullshit.
Or it's like the spider like almost kills Frodo, but just stops and talks for 3 hours, and it's
yeah, it's like Shelob is got Frodo, and Sam's going to save him. He stabs Shelob. She goes away, and then the goblins start coming, and so Sam takes the ring and hides. Right, and so then during this part, the two goblins just stand over Frodo for 5 chapters. Talking about what they had for fucking lunch.
It's so
some bullshit.
It like set you up for failure too, because like before he starts talking about Ted's backstory, he's like, also Ted's story is really similar to like Callahan's story, and I'm like, oh no.
Oh my God,
I'm like, and we just had that conversation about Wolves of the Kala where it was like, I mean, we liked Callahan, but like we really didn't need that entire exposition dump. And I was like, oh my god, if this is gonna be like Callahan, it's just gonna be another exposition dump. And it was,
but it was a lot shorter though.
Thank God. I was like getting worried there. I was like, man, like how is he gonna have enough time to like wrap these things up if he's gonna have a Callahan level story in here? Luckily it was shorter, and then obviously, you know, we're about to talk about the other shoe dropping almost immediately after this, but I thought it was funny, just at least in the Ted story, like when he talks about how he shoots the telepath like bolt or whatever at the person who is stealing from him, and then he like threatens a bunch of kids, but his pants are like down.
Yeah,
And his penis is out. And it's just like, yeah, that's I'd expect nothing less
for you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't say, like, when he's like, I think my penis was out. It is bigger than a weasel.
Yeah, or some kind of description.
Some kind of.
And suddenly it was hard, and I didn't mean it to be. And
all right, Stephen King, calm down. but what's funny is that, I'm telling you, every single Stephen King book we've read so far, including the ones I read that without you, there's always a penis.
Yeah,
there's always a penis.
Always, pretty much every chapter. At least every other chapter, I would say. At least in this series.
and the vampires throbbing cock. Okay. But anyway, it's just hilarious. And when I've watched like other YouTubers talk about Stephen King, no one ever talks about his penis fetish.
I know.
No one talks about it.
Yeah, the people I've known who've loved Stephen King never talked. They always talk about, he makes scary stories. He's a really good writer. He's great at coming of age stories, but he's also great at coming of age stories.
Yeah. he's a cockasuer.
That's pretty good. I don't think I've ever heard that. We've known each other for a while. I don't think I've ever heard you say that. It's pretty funny.
I just thought of it. See, this is what reading will do to you.
Yeah, it'll turn you into Stephen King.
It'll get you to critically think. Oh my god.
That's funny.
Critically yank.
Okay. I like it.
That one wasn't good. Well, anyway, it's just like, it's like, how can you not mention it?
I know.
I mean, come on.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious. And we'd like to read a modern Stephen King book after this series. I'm curious to see what the penis ratio will be in that.
Yeah, goes from penises to just talking about boy bussies instead.
That would be with the trend.
That would be would be. So I guess like the next other section was like
the absolutely insane section. Yeah, and he primed it too, where he was, well, I don't know if I can't remember if he said this before the explosions and stuff or after, but he was like, now the story is going to get really short and really brutal. Like, he literally just said that, and I was like, oh god.
There was I wonder if it was like halfway through it.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I can't remember, but I don't know. I know when he said that, I was like, oh, thank God. But then it still fucking dragged a bit.
Yeah. I mean, when he said that, I was like, somebody's definitely going to die. In this scene or after this scene, somebody's going to die for sure. I was surprised he primed us even. I was like, knowing Stephen King, I would think he wouldn't prime us, but...
he does that in other books too, like, not saying the example, but like in The Stand, it's like the same thing where it's like, like book 4, I think it was book 4, yeah, when like Susan Delgado died.
Oh yeah.
He was like, and she never saw her.
Oh
again,
yeah,
like, and then rolling it.
Yeah, good
so like he which was Susan's. With Susan's, I think I did like it there. I'd have to go rewatch the video because I can't remember, but there were some instances where I feel like it wouldn't be good to do that. But here in this last book, like in this situation, because you think that the quartet is just gonna go like to kill them all unscathed because they've done shit like this before.
Yeah, many times.
But then when Stephen King like says that, and one of them is gonna die, you're just like, I think that helps add suspense Sorry, I had a. I think that helps add the suspense where it may have been lacking because, to be honest, if he didn't say that, I would have been like, okay, so this is just another thing. They're gonna beat it, and then let's just get to the tower already. But then,
Right.
but then by saying that the quartet's gonna be broken, someone's gonna die, and like they're all hugging each other and like all doing this stuff, and so you know someone's gonna die. Then it's like, okay, then you can slow down, take the scene, and it just adds so much suspense to it to this scene. Whereas before, you probably didn't give as much of a shit.
True. Yeah. It did lock me in, right? Like I was kind of. I mean, I like the fighting as well. That helped to lock me in as well. But yeah, like him saying that really locked me in because I was like, oh shit, and oh shit, it was.
Oh shit, it was.
I guess we can just
So
start talking about it. Unless, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that's the main part. I was about to say. I think we both knew Eddie was going to be the first to go.
It
Uh,
especially like this last few sections, it just felt like it was coming.
yeah,
He wasn't at the forefront as much. I thought Ted would die too, in good old Callahan fashion. I'm sure Ted will die later on, but
yeah. I I think it was necessary for Eddie to be the first one because since he's the comic relief, with him out of the way, the story can get dark and serious.
that's true too. I didn't even think about that angle. That's a good point as well. Because it did get. I mean, obviously it's serious with Eddie dying in general, but yeah, like not having Eddie around now, you don't have those breaks. So yeah, now it's just down to the, like you said, the dark stuff.
Yeah, uh because even like Jake mentioned it. Well then like what he said when they were leaving Susanna behind to go save Stephen King and Suzanne says be careful or whatever to him, be careful sugar to he's like Jake's like I can almost hear he's like I can hear Eddie in my head saying watch my ass, and like that made me laugh a little bit because
Right.
it's like that's the comic relief, and now since we're missing that, the quartet's broken. Uh, it's it's finally time for the story to get more serious and wrap up its get to the tower basically and get the conclusion going. No more time for funny jokes or anything. It's all the cards are on the table now, Chief.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to now, right? There's not a lot of this book left. Well, we got like I think 14 hours book like audiobook wise. So that probably
Well, like,
equates to like yeah, go ahead. I can't remember how many hours.
let's say I got like 11. Let me look it up.
Oh, okay. I think you probably
Yeah,
have it on 11 because you
yeah.
got the 1.25. Because like when I put mine on
I'm on
1.25.
I'm on 1.3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I put mine on like another speed, it still keeps it at the same length. Like it doesn't change it, but it's still like going faster. But yeah, I mean, like I think like 14 hours ish, 11 to 14 hours. That's only a few hundred pages in a real book, so there's not a lot left. So you kind of have to have this final crescendo start going down. I guess what did you think about like the way he died, that whole sequence? Like, what did you think of that in general?
I I'm surprised that I am oddly satisfied with it. I
Really?
don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why, but I think it's because I know the story has gone so meta, and I firmly believe that everyone's either gonna be like resurrected at the end, or everyone's gonna have a happy just because of how meta it is. I I wasn't like that sad, you know. Like I was sad. Don't get me wrong. Like because I love these characters, I don't want to see them die and shit. But I think knowing how meta the story is, it kind of doesn't make me care as much when they die because I think that they're all gonna have a happy ending anyway. So,
Right. Yeah.
but knowing that, just like talking about the exact scene, I still liked it because Eddie, what he should have done as the gunslinger, should have just shot everybody, instead of just dicking around. But that's Eddie asking what's your last words type of boom, and then if he wasn't doing that and he was just straight up just doing what he was supposed to do, then he probably would have survived. But that's his character, so. And it was really cool seeing Roland, like, because he has the arthritis and he's old and everything, but like it's like he was so fast, no one could even see the motion of him turning and shooting. He just did and killed the guy. And I was like, that's badass. And then I did like how he shot Eddie, but didn't like kill him, but like left him a little nuts, because then like feel like because when it comes to a main character dying, the only way to really satisfy the reader is to show the impact that character has on the other characters, to emphasize like their reactions. And this was a great way to extend Eddie's death to where we could get everyone's like we could see everyone's emotions and actions flow, because this is the first one, and now the first one happened, the other ones probably won't be as slow because now they're prepared for it. So I think this was a way of concluding Eddie's character by slowing down the story and having the reader as well as the characters kind of just go through the motions and deal with it. That way the next deaths will probably be a lot faster to get the story going through.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
I mean, like, I was kind of like you, where I wasn't, I was sad, but I wasn't insanely sad. I'm not necessarily sure, the factors going into me not being as sad as I thought I would maybe be when I see some of these characters start dying. I think part of it is also like you said, it's gotten so meta, and like the focus of the book the focus of the series lately, in my opinion, has not been on the Kotet really as much. It's been more on the universe. It's been more on how meta it is. It's been on more of like, we need to do this purpose of getting to the Dark Tower. We need to save everyone. It's been less about like the relationships between the Kotet. I think if you killed off Eddie like earlier on in this series, where we were like learning about each other and they were like a super tight unit, not that they're not a super tight unit now, but they're the like character development part of their Kotet is like not the forefront of this last part. So but also like, I mean, obviously the way they killed Flag, or how he killed Flag, was kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, like Stephen King's way of doing it. Like you said, he's
disappointing.
Yeah, well, more realistic, more like to the point, like not dragged out. Like he's dead, basically.
Yeah.
Like he's dead. Like it's unceremonious, I guess is how I would describe it. Is he doesn't write it to be, like it's dragged out. Like he's just dead. Like literally.
Yeah.
We saw the guy on the ground cocking the gun, and then a couple pages later, he's dead. Or he's not dead, like you said, but he's, hobbled and gonna die. But, yeah, it does kind of set up for everything else to, the other dominoes to fall faster now. Because we are running out of time here, and, I'd like it to be... It doesn't need to be a fantastic ending by any means. Just a fairly satisfying one. And I think this death with Eddie was, like you said, to me, it was similar, where I was satisfied with it. Could you go crazy with it, and like have him do this like huge shootout and like he sacrifices himself or like some other shit, you know what I mean? Like whatever you want to think of, like he fights off like Mordred and they can like escape or some shit and he dies or something. But you could do it that route, but I think at least Stephen King's style thus far in this series has been like they're dead.
Yeah,
So
and that's kind of what I do appreciate it about. I mean, that's why I like Stephen King's. I like Stephen King. I like the realism part of it.
right.
Because like I like fantasy too, but like when I read fantasy, I know what I'm getting into. When I read Stephen King, I know what I'm getting into. So if every single person in the quartet had a very long, dramatic death, that would just be annoying as fuck.
It would be, and it
Because-
would be cliche and feel cheaper, I think. Yeah.
yeah. And I already feel like there is a heaven in Stephen King's universe. So like when Eddie said, "I'll wait for you,"
Yeah.
and it's like, so it makes me feel better, knowing that like Susanna's probably gonna die too.
Right.
But it makes me feel better that at least they'll be happy together. So it's like I can't really be sad because like where Eddie's going is not going to be any more pain and whatnot. So he's just going to be waiting for Susanna.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why I wasn't as sad as I thought I'd be with his death, is because I already know that it's going to be all right, or at least I think it is. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's the end of the Dark Tower. It's just hell.
Yeah, it's just
No, I totally echo what you said, where it's like, when he said, "Yeah, I'll wait for you in the clearing," it like resonated in this universe that like I feel like, yeah, Stephen King has set it up where there is a legit afterlife, that's a positive afterlife where Susanna will actually join him. That line though was the part where it like made me the most emotional of all the lines. The lot when he was like, "I'll wait for you," I was like, damn,
yeah,
that's really sad. But at the same time, like you said, I think it's legit that Susanna will probably die as well. I think everybody will die until Roland, and then Roland will probably die in the end. But yeah, I could definitely see there being a heaven in this universe. So
like I don't think Jake or
Oi.
I don't think Jake's gonna die. Oi, I'm on the fence. Roland, I don't think's gonna die. But then again, so these are the two scenarios I see happening. Either Jake, Roland, and Oi live, or it's just Jake and Oi live.
Yeah.
Or it's actually, yeah, I think it's just Jake and Oi is gonna live, because I think there's gonna be another situation where at the ending of the first Dark Tower, Roland dropped Jake for the Dark Tower. And then either
Jake
in this
will
book,
sacrifice him. Yeah.
well, either Jake will sacrifice Roland, or Jake will not be like Roland and won't sacrifice.
And then they both die or
him.
something.
Well, maybe that's the key to the Dark Tower, because remember what Roland's been saying about Ka and following the tower and all this. And how when you're in the line of L, like in Wolves of the Kala, when Roland's like, "We're gonna help them whether they give us a reward or not, because that's just what we do." So what if the reason Roland couldn't make it to the Dark Tower was because he semi kind of betrayed this oath by killing Jake in the first book?
Yeah, that's fair.
And so in this one, what if he gets a second try where it's either he has to drop Jake again to get into the Dark Tower, but this time he chooses not to. But by making that decision and showing his character development and change from willing to sacrifice literally everything and everyone around him, but instead of doing that, he sacrifices himself in a metaphorical sense by sacrificing his dream of getting to the Dark Tower to save Jake, and then by doing that allows him to reach the Dark Tower.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes total sense. To me, that ending is the most logical one. If you want to have like a character development like arc for him, So that's why I think it's not gonna happen. Because I think
Yeah.
Stephen King's gonna try to do something different. But to me, if you wanted to like close the loop and like really have a good character development moment and have a good lesson, that would be the best way to do it, probably. I think
There are other worlds
there
than
are other
these.
worlds than these. Yeah. So, but kind of, and this is kind of a separate thing, but kind of building off of what we've talked about on other conversations throughout this book, where we've talked about how there are mixed reviews on this ending. I think this Eddie death can also implicate like why people might not like this book, because you have Randall Flagg dying in an unceremonious way, and then you kind of have Eddie just die in an unceremonious way. And like we've talked about, if you've had 20 years to think about this book, and then you get to the book, Flagg just dies, and then Eddie just gets shot in the head.
Yeah.
You might be like, I hate this. So
Yeah. But but this is why I like Stephen King, is because of the realism aspect. Is not everybody is going to die a glorious death, even as a gunslinger. So I feel like that kind of theme is like, no matter how important you might be, or who you are, uh death comes for us all, unexpectedly and unceremoniously,
yeah,
because it can happen to anybody.
right.
Like we're talking right now. Tomorrow on my way to work, I could get in a car crash and die, and this will be the last conversation we've ever had. And it's like, what kind of death is that? I went through my whole life just to get in a car crash and die. Like, it's retarded. So it's like, yeah. So I'm not trying to be mean. Sorry if anyone's listening. I don't want to
No?
say that, but I'm just saying is that in real life, like, not everyone gets a spectacular death. People die in their sleep. People, fall, like, have a stroke, heart attack, just randomly.
Yeah.
People get shot. Like, shit happens. So I feel like, yes, I could understand when you're reading fiction. You, like, if I was reading Wheel of Time, I'm not spoiling anything, obviously, for anyone who might be listening to this. It's like the main characters in Wheel of Time. You're like 14 books in, and but with a fantasy series like that, you expect a dramatized, grand fight scenes and death scenes. Like, you expect that in that kind of fantasy series, but then when you read Stephen King, you expect realism. And so by having Eddie die like this, even though it was disappointing to see Randall Flagg die the way he did, that's just how it is with realism. So that's why it's like, I'm disappointed in the fact of how Randall Flagg died, but I'm not upset, because I know what I'm getting into when I read Stephen King.
Yeah. And I echo everything you say there. And I think it just depends on like what your expectations are as a reader, right? So like, if you're expecting Stephen King to kind of go more of that, like you said, Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, high fantasy route, like super high fantasy route, he's not gonna do that, right? Like, he's Stephen King. He's gonna write it more realistic. So yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, and then what did you think about Eddie? See, because I feel like when he was dying and saying a bunch of shit, I think it was like one of that stuff where he was like reliving kind of his life a little bit, or maybe he was like in a toe dash state,
Right.
because he predicted some of the future to them, like when he told Jake to stay close and protect Roland, and told Roland about that dandelion or whatever it was.
Yeah, like dandelion, or yeah, dandelo or something like that. So we have a potential another thing that might be an obstacle coming up.
Yeah, because when he told Susanna, he's like, "I'll wait for you on the path," and then Jake's like, "Oh, can you wait for me too?" And Eddie's like, "No, you're gonna be a wild kid."
You're right. Yeah, he kind of predicts it a little bit.
Yeah, so I feel like in this state, he saw the future, or at least visions or something. So what he says will come true. So obviously, I think Susanna's gonna die next, and then Jake's gonna do something to save Roland. And I think what that's gonna be is Jake's gonna try to maybe sacrifice himself this time instead of Roland sacrificing him, but Roland's not gonna let him, or something like that. That's my prediction, at least.
It's got to be something where one of the other has the option of sacrificing the other, because like you said, the first book he drops Jake to his death, and then throughout this entire series, Jake has been like, "Hey, remember when you dropped me?" So, or he thinks about it all the time, and every single book it's been brought up again multiple times. So it would only make sense for there to be another situation very similar to that, to the first book, where we're gonna have one of them's gonna have the option to sacrifice the other in some way. Yeah. But I do, or go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna repeat what Jake said, where he's just like, Eddie's dying, but I had a little hope that that he'd survive, but I know he won't. I've died before, but our situations are different. Ka's done with him, but Ka's not done with me.
Right.
Or some along the lines.
Yeah, it was something like that, where he knew Eddie was not going to come back, but he knew that his part in the story wasn't over yet.
Yeah. So what were you saying?
I was gonna talk about the other thing with like them, departing and
oh yeah.
Yeah, and attempting to save Stephen King, which I think this is a really clever way to write this. I know we're getting even more meta, which obviously this whole series the second half has been very meta, so we're already going down that theme. But like, I know we talked about how he did actually get hit by a car for real. In Maine, and he didn't die. He almost died, but like in this series, up until this point, he's supposed to die. So it's a kind of a clever way of writing this, because it was a real event that happened to him, but he's almost writing it like the only reason I didn't die when I got hit by that car is because of Jake and Roland, right? Because now they're going back to 1999. They're gonna do something to make it so he's still gonna get hit by the car, but he's not gonna die, right? So, it's very clever. It was interesting, and it's interesting that he wrote it this way. And it for sure that he didn't know how he was exactly going to end this, or at least do this part of the ending until 1999, because this didn't happen to him until 1999, right? So like, I don't know if like him getting hit by the car, because he wrote these. Didn't he write these books in like 2002 or 2003?
They were released in 2003, 2004.
Okay.
He finished all 3 books before they got published.
Right.
So
it was really close to that event, right? With him getting hit by the car. So it's almost like,
and 9/11.
And 9/11. So it's almost like, he got hit by the car, and he's been writing this series for so long and he hadn't finished it yet. Right, he gets hit by the car, and then 2 things happen. He realizes like, I could die whenever, so I should finish this series, right? Because it's like it spans so much of his lifetime. And then on top of that, it gave him a good idea to like be clever about the way his character of Stephen King in the book doesn't die in that event. Yeah. So it's cool. I thought it was a cool way to put it in the book.
It is kind of cool, because then it kind of makes like our reality is the main reality that you can't come back from, and so that's the reality they got to go back to, because Stephen King was in like another reality, wasn't in like the main one. I don't think he was like on the border or something like that, but or maybe he was hit in the other one and not the main one, but like. The point is like the world we're in now is the world they're going to, because like this event actually happened. So it kind of just adds to Stephen King's world, where it's like I'm looking around and I'm like, am I in a Stephen King book?
Yeah, right.
God,
yeah,
I hope I'm not. There's penises everywhere.
They're groping for my crotch.
Oh, it was curved like a scimitar.
Can you imagine
I,
just like, or like those what are those things, the like zombie guys who just spawn into existence or whatever? Can't remember what they're called. Like half dead people, the spirits. Just can't even.
you mean when they were doing toe dash or?
Yeah, you can see them in Toe Dash, but like they also saw them in like New York and stuff. Like the kid who had like a bullet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, if we're in a Stephen King universe, can you imagine just like walking around and just see like a zombie
yeah.
child?
Fuck that. Oh,
But
it's
yeah, I thought.
I just
No, no, go
never,
ahead. Go ahead.
no, I don't want to say it.
No, go. Okay.
Never mind. Never mind. Let's
No,
just
but
move on.
I
But
think it is cool because like now that he has gone down this meta route, it unlocks these ways that he can interweave it into real life events, right? And make it seem
yeah,
more real and make it seem like the multiverse is real and make it seem like the things he writes about could be reality in a different
and
universe.
that's
So it's
scary
cool.
as fuck.
It's scary. It's cool.
That's
It's also
scary.
scary, yeah, because like he obviously
It's
writes about some weird shit.
it's terrifying. I might be able to have sex with Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Honestly, that's
Oh,
the
I'm
scariest
terrified.
part of this entire thing. Well,
Yeah.
that and the demon that can hold your seed and shoot it into someone else. That's pretty
Oh
fucking
yeah.
weird.
Oh, like half human, half spider with
Yeah,
a big
dude.
ol' erection.
It's pretty cool, man. Love
Yeah.
it.
I told I described it to my because like my sister listened to like a little bit of the first Dark Tower with me.
Uh-huh.
We were doing a puzzle, and well then I was talking to James, my brother-in-law, and I was like, hey, so I'm pretty sure the spider is the creature from this other book, or whatever, and you want to know how that creature got conceived? And he's like, what, how? And then I told him, and he's just like, what the fuck? It's like I don't I don't know, should I just say it already, if you guys already know it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean
pretty sure we probably already said it last video.
yeah, we kind of talked
Anyway,
about it in the last one as well.
yeah, so like it's like you read it, and then you're like, oh cool, and then whatever, and then you read the Dark Tower after, and you're like, oh, so that's how that thing got made, and then you're just like, what the fuck? you know but we'll see, because we don't know for sure whether it is
Yeah,
Pennywise or not.
I hope that's cleared up. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, so like I get, honestly, one of like kind of the last things I wanted to talk about is how Eddie's death impacts everybody.
Uh-huh.
So with Susanna, obviously, she's gonna go nuts, like obviously. So she goes a little cray cray, and she's like, I'm not gonna. She's like, I don't care about this damn tower anymore. But everyone knows she's lying because they all want the tower,
Right.
get to the tower.
Yeah.
But she's like, the quartet's broken. She's all kind of bitter and kind of rude towards Roland a little bit. Not in like I don't like you, Roland, but more as in like, she's just upset. She's grieving.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she's not like that towards Jake, thank God. But then Jake is like smoking. He's basically becoming a mini Roland. Like he's taking
Very much
both.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from his original father too, because he's like, oh, I swore I'd never take up smoking, but here I am. Look at me.
Well, after you've seen everything you've seen as Jake, I don't really blame you. You can do whatever you want, man, at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a cigarette.
Sure.
Just calm down. And then Roland's seen many deaths of his friends before, so obviously, I mean, he's not taking it like any easier, but he can handle himself better than the rest can. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it just goes to show, but I'm wondering how accurate, like someone in Susanna's place, like how accurate this is
As
to how she would react.
Oh, like as
How
far as like
someone react
grieving and
like
stuff.
a lover. Yeah, to have like your lover die like that, and like I just wondering how accurate a person would be to that. I mean, I don't know. It's never happened. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I almost try to imagine, like when Eddie said, I'll wait for you in the clearing. That's when it like really became real, at least in my brain, and I imagine it as if my long-term girlfriend was in the same situation where she just died. And but obviously this is like a fantasy series, right? So it's
oh,
not real, but like at the same time, um, yeah, that'd be pretty bad.
pretty
But at the same
is
time,
it
you're trying to save the universe, so like I would think if I was in that situation and that happened, I would take some time like Susanna is right now, but at the same time, you have to finish the job. I mean, he died, and like the whole reason he died is because you were trying to finish this job, so you might as well just do it, right?
yeah. You gotta push through.
Yeah.
It's like the old military tactic that I've heard is like you can grieve once the battle's over because if you grieve in the middle of it, it's just going to lead to more death
Yeah.
because you need to stay sharp, finish the job, grieve after, so
Yep.
that you don't put any more lives in danger.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But yeah, is there any more in this section that you found you wanted to
No,
talk
no,
about?
I think we kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about.
Cool. So predictions for this next part,
Yeah. So
or
obviously, I kind of, I guess, already said my prediction of like, I think he's gonna make it consistent with reality, right? Where in the book right now, Stephen King is supposed to die from this car wreck, but in like in real life, we know he did get hit by a car but didn't die. So they're gonna do something to make it so he doesn't die. Now,
yeah,
what they're gonna do, I have no idea. Um,
yeah,
but
I have no fucking idea.
yeah, because like he's
I
still
have
gonna get hit by the
nothing.
car, so I'm almost like they have to. They're probably gonna get to him maybe right after he gets hit by the car, or maybe they get to him at the hospital or something and are able to do something to make it so he doesn't die. Because obviously they're not gonna get there in time to stop the car. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're gonna do.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I don't really have much predictions because I don't really know what the, what the fuck's gonna happen.
I know, right? It's a fun series because I never know what's gonna happen, and I don't know what's gonna happen here either. I just think it's clever the way he's writing it so far. So I'm really engaged, like you said. Once we got to the end of this section, I'm very excited to read the next section to see
Yeah.
how he
And
write
he
it or is gonna write it.
and he did say that like once the quartet's broken and the conclusion like a story happens, all the parts start coming quicker.
Yes,
So, 11 hours left in the book. Well, and we're not even at the tower yet.
I know,
I have 11 hours
I
left
know,
in
man.
this whole series, and we're not even at the tower. So I'm just kind of like,
I just
bruh,
I hope there's enough
I don't know.
time to shed enough light on that because man we've gone these 6 7 books deep now. I hope there's enough time to address it in a way that's satisfying. It doesn't have to be long, I
Yeah,
guess I'm not super worried about it, the length necessarily. I'm just a little worried that it's not going to get the proper address, like he's not going to
yeah.
address it properly. But we'll see. I mean,
I
he's a
guess
really
we'll
good
see.
writer, so
Yeah,
I'm not that
and he
worried.
he he did finish all of them before publishing them.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously he must have been satisfied with its conclusion, right? Obviously, like he wouldn't have published it if he wasn't satisfied with the ending.
I agree. I would think so.
Uh,
I agree.
so I feel like whatever he had thought of the Dark Tower being, because even this whole time he said like I don't even know what the Dark Tower is. It's
Yeah.
just kind of there. So it's like guess we'll figure it out. If it's like what? Okay, so what do you think would be lame as fuck? Like what the Dark Tower?
Oh
Like what do you
God.
legitly think
Yeah.
it could be
What would
that
it
would be
be if it
so lame?
sucked? Yeah. I don't know, man. Something generic would suck. Like if it's just God. if it's just God, I'd be like, come on, man.
Yeah,
If it's just like a like generic like that, where it's like, oh, it's just God, and he or she is like, he's orchestrating things. I think I think I would hate that, honestly. Just going 7 books deep just to have that be the ending. I don't really think we need to have 7 books to do that, you know. I almost like think that because he had that near death experience with the car, it's going to be whatever his thoughts were from that near death experience. Like how he thinks about the world now is going to be the Dark Tower. Like whatever. I don't know if I know sometimes people clinically die and then they come back, right? Like sometimes they die for a few minutes and then their heartbeat comes back or whatever and they live. So I don't know how bad he was injured, but like maybe he'll kind of take some of that experience to fill in with the Dark Towers. But what would you think? What would be really lame for you, I guess?
If the top of the Dark Tower, like the Ruiner thing, ends up being just Stephen King's mind. Like
yeah, we talked about that one. I remember now.
Yeah, it's just so I think it was either The Matrix or some other some other movie or something I saw.
Uh-huh.
It's like he walks in, right, and it's just like this white room, and Stephen King's in a chair, and he like twirls around the chair. It's just like, you've reached it, Roland. This is my mind where I'm thinking right now, and it's just like
that would be really lame too. God.
So, but I'm saying if that's gonna be lame, but if that is what it ends up being, it would depend on how well Stephen King writes it.
Yeah, and
because it could turn out to be good as well, and he is a good writer. So
yeah, and I almost like, I don't know, I guess I'm just not a super harsh critic as well necessarily with endings, but like I'm almost like, whatever Stephen King, like you said, he already wrote the entire series and then published it. He already wrote the final sections and then published it. Whatever he thinks is good in his brain for like what the Dark Tower could be is okay with me. If it ends up being just his fucking brain, I mean, it'd be a little annoying, but it would also be like, that's fine, man. And it's fine if that's what you think is good, and I know Stephen King will write it well enough where I'll find it acceptable. Because the journey was so fun anyway. The whole series was a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, the entire series just sucks just because the ending wasn't what I wanted it to be. So
yeah, it's always about, honestly, most of the time it's about the journey, not really the ending. Because going back to Wheel of Time again, obviously I'm going to say it again, I'm not spoiling anything, but we have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen at the end of the series, but knowing that it's still amazing to read and super fun because the journey is great.
The characters are fun, the universe is fun.
It's like, you're watching all the original kind of Marvel movies, like the one building up to Thanos, and it's like they're gonna beat him, obviously. Like even in the first one, they're gonna bring everyone back and beat him. This, but it's still fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's just like a TV show. It's a good time.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I see like Wheel of Time, and then like Dark Tower, same way, where it's like, but in a way where I don't know how it's going to end, but regardless, the journey was worth it because I like the characters.
I completely agree, and it like I read it when I was younger, but reading this now too like spurred my interest again in like reading more Stephen King stuff. Right, like it reminded me why he's a good author, right? So so that alone, it has value. Like that alone to me is like, all right, now I haven't, I'm excited to read these other books that he has too.
Yeah. Hashtag wait for our video top 10 Stephen King dick description.
Yeah. We'll have to do that one day. We'll have to.
Yeah, we're definitely doing it, 100%. Like, no doubt. All right,
Yeah.
I'm about to piss myself. I drink a lot of
Yeah,
water.
we can.
I'll let you do
Yeah,
the
we can.
outro.
We can wrap it up.
I'm just gonna say smell you later. I gotta piss.
All
I'll
right,
be
cool.
back.
All right, so we're going to read. Looks like part 3.
Oh, baby.
Double check here how long this is. Yeah, it looks like we can just do part 3. Part 2 we kind of split into 2 parts because it was a little bit more lengthy. But yeah, we can just aim for part 3 next week, and we appreciate you all listening. We'll see you next week.